Family Engagement Team Proposal Meeting for our district. Welcome and thank you for your willingness to participate this afternoon. We pretty much know everyone, so we won't start out with introductions, but we have invited a community member, Courtney Covington from PIMS, and we're hoping that she would join us pretty soon. I want to get started by making sure that everyone's camera is on. Please remain muted unless we ask you to unmute. We will have some dialogue, but we will be using the chat to kind of manage that. So with that in mind, I want to just start out to say, I am excited about this opportunity. I'm excited that I believe even though COVID is a negative pandemic, it has created opportunities for us to advance forward and bring together some conversations that pivot around our organizational leadership. So with that in mind, we just think about family engagement at this time and how important more than ever that it needs to be organized and delivered from an organizational system and leaders that are key to the work. The Office of Strategic Partnership proposed this engagement team. Ms. Kane and our team, we think about these important pieces because I think it's important at this time we collaborate more with the key leaders in our district across disciplines to establish systems and structures that promote embedded family engagement in all of our work, in our district core values, and our policies and our practices. How does that trickle down and what does that look like at our school-based level? If we truly believe that engagement, family engagement is an instructional strategy, what does that really look like? And today I'm excited because one of the things that about this work, we have always reached out beyond our borders and consulted with experts and others around the country. So today we have Ron Meir. He's a private consultant based in Iowa City, who has 40 years of experience of working with pre-K through 12 and social services. And he's been a national leader as it regards to family engagement over 25 years. He's in the past 20 years, he's consulted with Dr. Karen Mapp from Harvard. And as you know, most of us know that we have been consulting with her over a series of 3 to 4 years regarding this work. Ron is a senior vice president. He was a senior vice president for Scholastic, and he led the FACEIT component of that work. He's a co-founder of CAFE, the Center for Active Family Engagement, and he's a national consultant. So we are asking that Ron takes over and lead us in this work and guide us in how we could maximize this opportunity to do great things as it regards to connecting to our families, connecting to our parents, and eliminating silos and duplication of work. So at this time, Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Dr. Brim, thanks so much for having me join you all today. I'm excited actually to talk with you. As Dr. Brim knows, I will talk about this anytime to anyone who's interested in listening about how you partner with families in ways that support student learning. And what is so exciting for Pinellas is that you guys are not the typical district in this area. You are one of the folks moving out in front. And a really good indication of that is the fact that you're taking this time to talk at a district level, how you're going to coordinate your efforts, how you're going to work collaboratively to ensure that every school in your district is partnering with families in ways that support learning. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm actually going to ask my new friend, Amy from Title I. I got to talk with her the other day and she shared this quote. So I'm going to ask her to read the quote and tell you where it came from.
Hello, everybody. My name's Amy. Thank you, Ron. So in preparation for a parent advisory council meeting that we were supposed to have yesterday that got rained out, I conducted just a little input survey so we could drive conversation during the meeting. It's a little bit with the formatting with the virtual meetings. And the question was asked, amongst others, where are potential areas the district should consider for its district parent and family engagement plan? And so this question was asked of our Title I schools regarding the Title I parent and family engagement plan. And the parents' response was, I feel as though the biggest issue that needs to be stressed is parent involvement. Without that, this program cannot be successful. I'm not sure at the moment how we can get this to the forefront, but it is the key. And I can't wait to have my meeting and share with her that this is getting to the forefront and we're taking their words seriously.
And thanks, Amy. So this is what we want to talk about today. I want to, what we hope by the end of the day is that you have a common understanding of what it means when this parent has said she's not sure what it takes to get this at the forefront. We want to talk to you about what the work is and have you start thinking about how you bring these partnerships with families to the forefront. And what I'd like you to do for a start, you can either unmute or you can use the chat box, but thinking about what your district does, either through your lens and your role or what you've seen, what do you think is the best thing your district does to partner with families in ways that support student learning? So you can feel free to type it in the chat or to unmute and just share. And I'll tell you that before I went, I've retired now, but before I went to Scholastic, I didn't know the word voluntold, but I did learn what it means. So you look like a talkative group, but if I can't get you talking, I'll be voluntelling some folks here as we go through the day. Okay, so here Kevin says, individual parent conferences that explain student progress. A great thing to do. What else? That's one. What else do you think is the best thing you do in the district to partner with families in ways that support student learning? An advisory committee that has that provides support through meetings and trainings. Okay. A comprehensive district website, so you use communication tools, virtual classes for families, parent access to student grades, providing, I like that, it makes sense, it comes from ESL, providing information in a language that families prefer, having information nights, etc. Okay, those are great things to have happen. And what I want to talk about today is what we know works. So this is a picture of Dr. Karen Mapp. Karen is a faculty member at Harvard in the College of Ed, and she really is the nation's, if not the world's, leading authority on how do schools partner with families in ways that make a difference to student academic performance. And there is 50 plus years of research that very clearly shows when you partner with families and you make homeschool partnerships an instructional strategy, the kinds of outcomes you get are these: that kids come to school more regularly. They learn to read sooner, faster. They get along better with their peers. There are fewer disruptions in a classroom. Kids whose families are involved in these ways are more likely to take challenging courses like pre-AP, pre-honors, honors AP. They earn more credits, they earn higher test scores, and they are more likely to go on to higher education. And what's interesting about the research is that these outcomes are true for every subgroup you can name. It is possible. The challenge is identifying what are the practices that make these partnerships an instructional strategy. How do you do the things that make a difference to student learning? And the related challenge is how do you stop doing things that don't have an impact on student learning with families? So I'm going to share one particular study with you in a minute. This is a really important thing to say before we start. If you have poor instruction in your classrooms, no amount of family engagement will get kids to proficiency. the impact comes from strong instructional practices combined with partnering with families in ways that support learning so that those families can take action at home. So what I want to make sure is really clear is this is not a cure for everything. It is a value add. When you have strong instruction and you have these kinds of partnerships, you can see bigger academic gains. And again, as I said, that holds true for all groups. So I'm going to share with you one particular study that I think embodies all of the research. This is a national study that looked at Title I schools, and I know you have a lot of Title I schools in Pinellas. That in what they were able to document in this study is that when teachers did three things with families, not with students, but this is what they did with families, those students' performance increased at a significantly higher rate in reading and math. And I'd like you to use the chat again or just to unmute and tell me, what do you think those three things are that teachers did with families? What are those things that make a difference to student learning? And I will tell you, some of them you touched on in your opening thoughts. Direct communication. So Kalila, direct communication about what? Anything in particular? Modeled methodology, I like that. Sent home learning kits. One was to be specific about their student in particular. You guys are student progress regarding behavior and academics. So you guys are right around you're really, really close to what happened. So let me tell you what the three things are, and then we're going to talk about each one individually. And what we're going to do today is reflect on, while these things have to happen at the building level, how do you, in your role, in your office at the district level, support these things to happen throughout the schools in Pinellas? So the first thing that teachers did is they made a positive personal connection with every family. And you're going to hear, this does not mean an all call or an email. So it starts with relationships. And relationships, as you know, take a long time to nurture. What we know from the research is that when families trust the school, you then have the condition to say, come along and help us support your child's learning. And without that, you can't do the kinds of things with families that make a difference to student learning. The second thing they did was they helped families understand how well their child is performing. So you guys talked a little bit about that. They did it a little differently though than most schools. This happened extremely early in the school year. It happened right away. It didn't happen after 9 weeks or 18 weeks, but it happened immediately. So when we start the school year, the question that families can answer accurately is my child at, above, or below grade level in relation to the standards for that grade? And we'll talk more about that. And then the third thing they did was they empowered families to support learning home. And this is really loaded because empowering does not simply mean giving them a tool. They gave them a tool and they taught them how to use it. So when they built that family capacity to use the tools and the resources, like somebody mentioned sending home some kits, when they taught them what to do, families then did those things at home, and that's when we saw the difference to student learning. So let's talk through these three focus areas in a little more depth. So teachers made a positive personal connection with every family. In real estate, Dr. Mapp often talks about if you have a relative who works in real estate or you know anything about it, the old adage is the three most important words in real estate are location, location, location. The three most important words in partnerships with families are relationship, relationship, relationship. If the families do not trust you, you don't have anything to trade on and say to them, come partner with me. So what the schools did is they really reached out and made a positive personal connection, which cannot be done through an email or a robocall. And I want to give you two examples. This is a school district I'm working with right now in Iowa. In Iowa, it's the second largest school district and it enrolls 18,000 students. So a little different than Florida. What their superintendent has decided and their leadership group, the people in your roles in their district, they decided that they were committed to having a district approach to supporting partnerships with all families, partnerships that make a difference to student learning. And they are requiring, but they're also supporting their teacher. Every teacher has to have a monthly video conference with families. Sounds like a lot. Conversation one, we helped structure the conversation, help prepare the teachers to do this well. And in conversation one, it was all about making that positive connection. They actually completed this in October 9th this year, but they would call and would have like a Zoom and we would get together and I would say, oh, Natasha, your daughter's going to be in my 3rd grade class next year. I'm so excited that she's there. What are your hopes and dreams for her? And tell me, how does she like to learn? And what can you tell me that will make me a better teacher? But it was getting to know. It wasn't calling and saying, here's the rules, here's the A day, B day schedule. It was connecting on a human level. And we told them, don't get into all the rules and all of that. Make those first few connections very positive. So why do I share this example? You know, in these COVID times, things are crazy. And one of the things that's crazy is attendance. We're having a hard time getting people to get online. This district, this school is only online at this point. Jefferson High School, it's one of 4 comprehensive high schools that they have. Their attendance this year is better than their attendance was in pre-COVID times. They have more kids participating. And if you ask this principal, he will tell you he attributes virtually all of that to the efforts their staff made to make these connections. They last year as a high school had pre-COVID, 8%, only 8% of their families participated in parent-teacher conferences. And as a result of these multiple conversations they're having, they have almost 80% of their families participating. So it is about making that human connection and having an advocate and getting families to trust. The other thing it did was in Iowa, we have an official count day in the fall. And on that day, however many kids are present, that's your funding for the year. So it was crucial that they had their kids attending. And as I said, in this particular school, they had a higher attendance rate this year than in the past. So these relationships can make a difference to things like attendance. I work with an elementary school in Southern California. It's Title I, about 75% Spanish speaking. They have, on any given day, over 96% attendance. And this principal will tell you it's more than attendance. These kids are engaged because they've made a partnership with the families, and the families know what to do and are supporting their kids being online, on time, and engaged in learning. So it makes a difference. So finding ways to intentionally build strong, positive relationships with families is critical to starting this work. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, I know in your district, because I've actually worked with Dr. Brim and Sheila over the last couple of years, I know you have some pockets of just outstanding performance by teachers and schools doing some things in pockets. How do you think as a district in your roles, what is it that you can do or your department can do to support every building throughout the district to really foster strong, trusting relationships with families? And you can just unmute and share. Don't all share at once. This is where I'll resort to voluntelling in a minute. So Amy, what do you think in Title I? What do you think you can do in Title I to ensure that schools are building strong relationships with every family? All schools, not just some schools.
Well, within my department and with my role, I just got off a phone call this morning with a school and they were asking what to do with their parent and family engagement funds. And there's not a one size fits all answer. And I think that's also important to note that you can't just provide a list and pick from it because every school is so different. So we really just kind of broke down her needs and what her school was looking at as far as, oh, we want our math scores up. And she had the take home kit. And I said, what are creative ways? How are we selling this kit? How are we getting our teachers involved? So that's how I'm also compliance police with funding money. So that's a whole nother issue. But just having those one-on-one conversations with schools when I know that there's a struggle.
So Ron, I'll jump in. My department, digital learning, I feel like one of the things that we can do is by helping staff understand the tools they have at their disposal to communicate. And, you know, we tend to think the old fashioned, you got your telephone, well, you know, I don't want to use my personal cell phone, and but just the digital tools that are available to support.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. Do you guys, are you a Google district? Do you have your staff, can they get those Google numbers or
Well, they can, and that's not even really my department, but yes, we are a Microsoft district, not Google, but anybody can get a Google number.
Super. Okay. And then you have training. You can help folks know how to use those tools well and how to use Zoom, for example. And in many ways, so this district that's up on the screen, Plymouth, they did a virtual family visit with every family. So they got on Zoom. They did exactly what we're doing here. They had the family members and had this lovely dialogue. And then they followed it up with some communication tools for sending out positive messages. And the district gave them some text or some samples to use to foster that. What else? So I'm gonna, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So I work for the ESC Parent Services Department. And for me, what has helped throughout time has been to be transparent and to encourage transparency at the school level, because sometimes I think, that relationship, that trust is broken because like, we're either not willing to say we made a mistake, or we're not sure, or let's get some help. And, so I say anything, I'm like, well, these are your procedural safeguard rights, or maybe there was an error. Let's go ahead and do some, it's like, so I think for people to be comfortable with not knowing, with making mistakes by sharing what is, but there has to be the boundary, because we as professionals, there are some
Right.
things you don't share, like whether it's, staff resources, you have to stay within the boundaries of why you're there with that family, but, stay in your lane.
You can do training and support for staff throughout the district on how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually throughout the years I have provided, it's like our parents are our customers, and I would do different things and have the groups. But yeah, I think so. But just making, when you're working, like, so I work with the families and then I reach out to the staff. And so just encouraging them to, it's okay not to know. It's okay. Like, it's okay to accept help and be the professional. So yeah, I think just allowing both parties just to really be authentic.
And you're going to see how important that is to this second conversation. And so this one is critical, and this is what most schools don't do. And transparency, Tracy, is essential here. So what they did in this study, and what we know works, is that the schools that were successful helped families understand how well their child is performing against the standard. And you may say, we do this already because we share test scores, we share grades, we have conferences, we do all kinds of things. But I want to share some data with you to help illustrate where we are as a country on this. This group is Learning Heroes. It's out of Washington, D.C. They've done this for years. They are really try to support parents to be involved in their child's learning. And they survey and interview families in all 50 states every year. And they did this again this year, last April and May. They did surveys, and they did 13 different surveys in all 50 states. And then in half of the states, they had focus groups both in English and Spanish. They oversampled for Black and brown families to make sure they had a really good picture. And they asked parents a lot of questions. And one of the questions they asked parents was, is your child at or above grade level? So what I'm sharing with you here is the Florida NAEP data from last year. This is the percent of students who are at or above grade level in your state. So Pinellas may not be exactly here. You may be a little better, you may be a little worse. On the left is the math, on the right is the reading. And you can see, if you look at all students, a third or fewer students are at or above grade level according to NAEP. And then if you look at student performance by subgroup, you see that varies, but in no case is it anywhere near 100%. So they asked, this is what reality is in Florida. What they asked families was, is your child at or above grade level? And my thought is, we give so much information to families that when we get the answers, it should somewhat mirror this. It should be similar. So what percent of families do you think believe their child is at or above grade level? Jennifer, what do you think?
I think probably a majority of families would think that unless they hear differently.
So put a number on that.
Oh, come on. I'm terrible at guesstimating.
Just guess. You said
80.
majority, so 60%?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Kalila, what do you think? Oh, Hillary says 90%. Connie says 75%. One other question. Do you think parent response varies by subgroup like the student performance varies? And if so, how do you think it varies? Tracy, if you're talking, you're muted.
Yeah, I don't type very fast in these little boxes.
Okay.
So my subgroup is students with disabilities. So of course, it's going to be very skewed in that, and my reality is always very different as well, because that is my population of families and successes and struggles when dealing with problem solving. So, it's not even about the success would be, is the student making adequate progress? And
So
so,
this question to them was, is your child at or above grade level? And they, again, they surveyed families of all stripes and kids with at all levels. So Dan, what is your role in the district? Because you said no, you didn't think the family voice, you didn't think it was different by subgroup. You are correct. I'm curious what it is you do.
I oversee our data and research division.
Okay, so let me show you what they said. This is the percent of families who believe their child is at or above grade level. I see Hillary. Okay, Hillary, now that you've raised your hands, tell me why this is a problem for Pinellas. If this, in
Sorry,
fact,
I was just celebrating because of how correct my guesses were.
what is it you do in the district?
I'm the PD specialist for equity.
Okay, so why do you think this is a challenge? Or do you see how this presents a challenge for Pinellas?
Yes.
And partner with families. So what do you think the challenge is? What is the problem?
I mean, I guess maybe it's not a challenge, but it's definitely an opportunity that we can see that parents have a really high perception of their students, and we just have to try to fill the gap between the difference of performance and where they see their students.
So here's the challenge. I think you said it in a very positive way. I'm going to say it in not such a positive way. Most families believe, in spite of all the information we give them, that their child is at or above grade level. And when a parent thinks their child is at or above grade level, there is no sense of urgency to do anything because my child is fine. And as we see clearly, that is not the case. When you ask high school families, 83% of them think their child's getting mostly B's or better, which we also know is not true. And again, it isn't that we don't share this information. What we are discovering is, in spite of what we share, families don't seem to understand. And when they believe their child is fine, it is very difficult to get them to take action at home because I don't need to do anything, everything's okay. If this happens early in the year, if as I think it was Tracy who said, be very transparent, be honest about this. If you help families truly understand where their child is, the first response you tend to get is, what are we going to do about this? How do I get my child caught up? Often with grades, I mean, one of the reasons is when we share grade or performance or growth information, we hear, oh, your child made a lot of growth. And so we fixate on that. And the parent doesn't walk away saying, even though they made a lot of growth, they're still 2 years behind in reading, and understand that and help them have a sense of urgency to move forward. So at Learning Heroes, one of the things they do, they make a lot of resources available to families and to schools that don't cost anything. And they have a guide for how you might have this conversation. I want to share with you what they suggest. So I happen to have 2 boys. And if my son were Scott, and I saw this data, if it's presented in the way that Learning Heroes suggests, that it shows where I am against the state standard, against the standard on reading in comparison to the state, the nation, and that little dotted line of where I'm supposed to be. So Lisa, if you, Scott, were your child and you saw this reading score, and I said to you, is your child at, above, or below grade level, what would you say?
Below?
Below, and a little below, a lot below?
A lot below.
Yeah, and so if you thought that and your child was a lot below, I would imagine one question you would have for me as the teacher is, what's going to happen? How do we fix this? And this is where we can say, I got some things I'm gonna do at school, but Lisa, I need your partnership. If you work with me, we can help support your child be successful, and helping folks really understand and come to grips with, it's not hopeless, but there's a challenge here, and we need to not ignore this. So helping families really understand where their child is performing as early as possible, and clearly answering the question, is my child at, above, or below grade level, and understanding just how far below they are. So again, I would ask you, in your role at the district, so my screen is really small now, Lisa, I can't see what it is that you manage. It says managing something. What can you do in your district role to ensure that teachers in every building have this kind of a powerful conversation with families and help families understand where their child is against the standards?
So I oversee the prevention department. I would say the collaboration, what we do in our department, in regards to this would be just collaborating with other departments, ensuring that, resources are available, and that families are able to access those resources. I think that's probably where we could fit in.
Yeah. So the challenge, and you're going to hear Dr. Brim and Sheila talk about this, is thinking through what the district does, how you combine forces, how you collaborate to ensure, first, that there's strong relationships. Second, families clearly understand where their child is performing. And that takes us to the third piece. And this is where schools have to empower families to take action. And empowering does not mean telling. If you think about what would work in a classroom, you don't just tell kids how something works and then they learn it. There's so much more to it. And I want to share one piece of data from another Harvard faculty member, Jimmy Kim. He is a reading person. This happens to be a study he did in Title I schools related to the summer slide, but I think it's a really good indication. And they did a randomized control trial. So they did the gold standard, and they put kids randomly in 4 groups. And the first group got quality instruction. So if you think about how kids do in the summer, typically kids fall off, they drop. In this particular group, they had good teachers delivering good instruction, and as you would expect, there was growth. So as a whole, they grew. So they didn't stay flat, they didn't go down, they actually grew, which is better than what typically happens in the summer. The second group they assigned them to was, they got the good instruction, and they also got to choose a couple books to take home. They didn't come with worksheets. They didn't come with, here's what to do. It simply got to pick a book, pick a couple books. And there's a lot of research that shows when kids pick the books, they read them. So kids who got books in addition to the instruction did better than the ones who just got instruction alone. So if you do nothing else in your district, one very easy thing to do is to build home libraries, especially if you let kids choose books, because kids tend to read the books they pick. The third group got good instruction, got the books, and it got the adults in their life. So the adults in the home, the parents, grandparents, step-parents, whoever it is, and the adults in the school. So the educators, teachers, principals, cafeteria staff, bus drivers, all of them, encouraging kids to read and saying things like, reading is good, you should read. It wasn't about quizzing them. It wasn't about doing worksheets. It was simply about saying, reading is so important, you should read. How do you think they did? Same, better, worse than books only? What do you think, Natasha? Jennifer says up. Jennifer, you are right. They did better. The last group, you know where this is going. The last group got good instruction, got books, encouraged kids to read. In this group, they taught families, they not only gave them the tool, but they taught them to use the tool. And what they taught them to do in this particular case was how you can help your child make sense of what they read. So they made parents feel competent and confident. And then parents went home and did it. And when they did it, this is what happened to the academic outcomes. And this illustrates the difference. Instruction alone is not a powerful enough intervention to help every child succeed. I wish it were. If that were the case, we have so many strong teachers already, we'd have our kids at proficiency, but it's not enough. There are other things we have to do. And one thing that you can do as a district is you can give families resources and teach them how to use the resources. So now I'm going to illustrate this. I want everybody to stand up so we can see in the camera. We're going to have a little fun today. Be brave, stand up so we can see you. This is a video. It is going to demonstrate It's a very short video. It's less than 2 minutes. It is going to demonstrate a salsa step. So I want you to watch it. Then I want you to do the step. It's done slowly. Do it once with them slowly and then do with them up to tempo. So we're going to be watching. So Hillary, are you standing up? I can't see. Are you standing there? Okay, super. All right, you ready? Here we go. And I want to see everybody doing this.
This is the front double basic style.
So you watch this time. And that's it. Now do it with them
Start with our
slowly.
basic, dipping on 2. So we're
Here
going
you go.
1, dip
Everybody
on
be doing
2,
it.
right back, 6, 7. 1, lift your body, frame. 1, 2, 3, frame, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, frame your body. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7.
And now up to tempo. Here you go. Hillary's laughing.
And that's how you style the front double basic.
Okay, so here's my, thank you for doing that and being brave. Oh,
This is the front double basic style.
so here's my question to you. What would it take for you to have enough confidence and competence to go out in public and do that step well? I was watching. I didn't see anybody who was at mastery yet. What else, what would you need besides this video? Or is this video enough? What would it take? Hillary, you're having such a good time. How about we start with you? You were smiling and laughing.
Sorry, my
Practice.
colleagues just saw me and all came over to see what was happening. Definitely more practice. And then
How much more? How much more?
I would have needed probably in this case another like half an hour, but more time and then some more scaffolding than that.
So who would give you that scaffolding?
The instructors from the video, hopefully.
You need somebody external. You can't do that for yourself. So you need more time, much more time. You need scaffolding. I hear feedback. So kind of, well, you need someone to say, yeah, you got, your arm's in the wrong place. It's in the right place.
Right.
How many times would you need to get feedback, Connie, where you felt like, I've got it. I have mastered this. I can go do this in public.
Me, probably 10 times.
10 times, okay. Any other things you would need to be proficient at this, where you actually would go out and do it regularly without me having to say, hey, Connie, go do that? Anybody? I did this with that elementary school the other day, and one of the men said, I would need a reason to go out in public and do this. I would need, because I wouldn't normally do this. So why did I show you this video? When we think about what schools typically do to help families know how to support their child's learning, we send home a note, we post a video, we have one family night that some families come to where we tell them what to do. There is generally no practice, and if there's practice, there's a tiny bit. And what you all just told me was, for you to move to mastery on this and feel comfortable to do this, you need a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, you need feedback, you need coaching. And I find almost no schools in the US help families know what to do to support their child, applying those concepts you just talked about. We post a video, and when that video is posted, we assume they'll watch it, or we send a note home, we assume they read it and they will do it. And that moves no one to action. And so the big lesson here is, it is not enough for your schools to simply post a video, send something home, have one night. They have to create what you described, a series of connected events where I'm getting multiple opportunities to practice, I get feedback, I have the tools, it's scaffolded. And only then will families actually do something that makes a difference at home. It increases the likelihood. So what we have to figure out is what you can do at the district level to ensure that they're not just posting videos or not just sending notes home, or they're just not posting links on a website, because that doesn't get anybody to do anything. And this is the real challenge. And we won't solve this today, but as you think, what do you think about that concept? Do you think your schools do give families sufficient time to rehearse and practice with the kinds of things that make a difference to their child's learning? I see Connie going like this. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And if they don't, what I say to many schools is, if all you're gonna do is post a video, you might as well not post anything, because that doesn't take anybody to proficiency. They're not gonna go home and do it. So this is where people like Connie, who are great on communication and digital things, it can be one of many tools, but it's got to be part of a connected suite of things. And we have to build adult capacity. So as you think about your role, is there anything in particular you think that you could do or might do to support buildings to change how they build family capacity around academic learning? Stunned you into silence. So I want to tell you that we've actually done this with some other districts, and in the chat box, Sheila's going to drop a couple documents in there. What we've done and what we hope will provide a guide to your district or a way to some examples of what you might think about is, in conjunction with leadership in the district and the buildings, we helped buildings describe and create a rubric, and schools love rubrics. Educators get rubrics of what effective family engagement looks like at the building level. And in the building level, it's all about having people at the table, having a clear plan, but training families in a way that actually makes a difference. And before they actually train the families, they've got to build the capacity of their staff to know how to do this. So that happens at the building level. So this particular tool is about that. The second tool that Sheila will drop into the chat box is, we did the same thing at the district level. And we're thinking about, this might be a good activity for Pinellas to look at, how do we, in all of our different offices at the district level, work together to support schools to have success, to build partnerships that make a difference to learning, that don't just do things that are not connected to learning. And one of the things, a sample, from this is that they tried to create a description of what it looks like to collaborate across programs and departments. And this is the rubric piece. So I want you to take a look at the screen. I hope it's big enough. And I want you to read this. And in just a minute, Sheila's going to do a little poll, so you'll be anonymous. And I want you to mark, if you assessed Pinellas, we adapted this, we put Pinellas words in here. This is not an official Pinellas thing, but it's an example of what we might do. If you read these exemplars, which column would you be in? Do you think Pinellas is in the ineffective column? I have to move the pictures to see what the titles are, I forget. In the developing column, the effective, or the highly effective column? And the reason why the one is highlighted purple is that's what they see. If you think about this in terms of proficiency words, that's minimum proficiency, the other one's highly proficient. So if these were the ones you accepted, where would you rate Pinellas? And Sheila, can you start the poll? So here's the poll. So everybody would vote where you think you are as a district. And then make sure you submit. And Sheila, if you would watch the counts to see if we can get almost everyone to participate. How are we doing, Sheila?
We have 4 people we need to have an answer from.
Okay, if you haven't answered yet, if you're not away from the screen, make sure you answer and hit submit. We'll give you 1 more minute. Okay, are you ready to share that result, Sheila?
Yes.
Okay, so here she goes. We'll get to see the results. So the vast majority, the 3/4 of you believe that you would meet that developing, be in the developing column. About 1/4 see you as effective, and a couple people see it as ineffective. And what we're thinking about is, and Sheila's going to explain this to you, over the coming months to be thinking through and starting to articulate, what does collaboration at the district level in Pinellas look like And how do we know where we are? To have a conversation about it, to articulate, to define it, and to find a way to rate where you are and collect, we have, Dan is from the assessment place. How do we collect some evidence or get some samples to say, this is where we are. This is why we say we're at developing or why we're at highly effective. And it also gives everyone then a clear picture of where you go. And what happens then is if you articulate this in the districts where we've done this, the districts are able to say, in my role in Title I or in ESOL or as a parent advocate or wherever I am, I can look at this and say, how do I get my department over to this effective column or the highly effective column? It helps focus efforts in conversation. And it gives then a conversation point for when you come together to say, where are we as a group? How do we know if we're there? And how do we move to the next level? So with that, I am going to turn this back to Dr. Brim and to Sheila to talk about what happens next. I tried to share with you sort of the foundations, what good family partnerships look like that make a difference to student learning. And now it's time to talk about what do you all want to do with that information and how will you work together?
I know that Ms. Kane is going to come on and talk about next steps, but thank you, Ron. But when you think about this from an organizational piece, the responses were always departmentalized. And I think that's the direction. One of the things we want to be able to work with moving forward is how do we connect this whole piece with collaboration? Because the ultimate goal, as research and Ron has stated, it's all about student achievement. And so I know Ms. Kane is going to come on and talk about, moving forward. Oh, I was talking muted, so I won't repeat. Go ahead, Ms. Kane.
Thanks, Dr. Brim and Ron. But what we'd like to see happen, we invited you as key district leaders. We hope that we've opened some eyes or reconfirmed some things, gotten some ideas going in your heads about how we can collaborate. We need your buy-in. We also need you to think about who you would like to appoint, either yourself or someone in your team, to a work group led with Ron and Dr. Brim and I, as we really tackle some of the important pieces to breaking down the silos and getting to at least thinking we can be effective in our district-wide collaboration. So if it's you or, as I said, someone in your team, we'll follow up. We don't expect you to make that decision today, but to think about what you learned here, follow up with us if there's any questions. I will share with you both the PowerPoint and again, the PDFs that were shared in the chat in case you didn't grab them. So that you can, maybe do a little research on your own or revisit some of the information on both the articles and the research and the work that Ron has been doing in other districts, and pick that person in your team that would best work with us to really get dirty, in the decision-making and the how-tos of how to bring this to life. We've been talking about it. We do well in our different departments, and now we need to bring it together. And as Dr. Brim said at the beginning, this whole COVID distance learning, whether it was in the spring because it was a crisis, or now just as we move through, where we are with MyPCS and face-to-face and other opportunities, this is the time. We can't wait any longer. This is the moment. The parents are engaged. They are engaged in ways they never thought they, would be, or maybe never thought they wanted to be, but they are there. And those that aren't, let's presume for the moment they want to be there. And all we need to do is give them the tools and help them get there. And that begins with our leadership and our helping the school staff. That's who the teachers, or that's who the parents want to hear from. That's who they want the relationship with. So let's figure out how to make that happen. I'll follow up, as I said, and you can let me know. We'll set a meeting date. This group, we'd like to see meet maybe quarterly, just to check in with you. We need to make sure we've this work group has accountability to these key district leaders in reporting our progress. We want to make sure we're continuing that shared vision that we've begun, you know, in the past and today for sure. And so that's the idea. That's where we're going with this. And
I'd be curious, Sheila, if it's okay if I interrupt, just to know in general, what we're saying is, and what Dr. Brim's office is saying is that partnerships with families should be about increased student learning. And that needs to be the focus. And in sharing with you those three main strategies, what did you think about that? Does it align with how you see the world? Does it make sense? Do you say, oh, that would take us down a path we don't want to go? I'd just be curious your reaction.
Well, Ron, I can say that, you know, I would say over 5 years, we've been really focusing on how do we drill down to get at family engagement within our school base and align to everything else. And so when you look at those 3 areas, it is going to take a team. It really is, because we have been working and working and working. But again, it has to go back to organizationally. What is our message? How are we going to get there? How are we going to get there together? It is about time. But if you could think about, we started this work 3 years ago. How much of a difference academically has it made now working as a silo? We really have to begin to work, to me, as a strong team, a district organizational system.
I think it's interesting that Ron observed at the beginning that Pinellas is kind of in the forefront. I've observed this in attending meetings and conferences with other state representatives, you know, family engagement district representatives. And it even though we, you know, are a step ahead, doesn't mean that we can't, you know, raise the bar for ourselves. I like to feel like we have a little bit something going. We kind of understand what we want to do, and now we're just going to use that knowledge and that energy to, you know, step even further.
The phrase that I use with schools and districts is that the challenge you have before you is, you're right, you know what you want, you know the right things, it's anchored in student learning, but not everybody does it. And so how do you get your district to do this consistently and superbly well? And the consistent means that all buildings at all levels do it. And they do the things that are best practice. They don't just post the video, they really do build family capacity. And so finding a way that you coordinate your efforts at the district to ensure it's happening everywhere and it's happening well.
Well, with that being said, we'll go ahead and conclude our meeting, and I want to thank you very much. And so we will be looking for some feedback and some collaborators to help move forward with working as a system to make family engagement systemic throughout our entire district. And thank you very much, Ron, and I appreciate everyone attending.
And remember, the next time I see you, I'm going to expect to see expertise with salsa.
Oh, and I have the recording, so, you know.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
That's funny. Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Courtney. Thank you.
Bye, my friends. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Connie, thank you for being such a good participant and being willing to share. I do appreciate that.
Okay, so I see.
It's just us now.
You want to stop recording?
Sure. Somebody always needs to remind me to stop recording. Thank you.